I'm going to make a video that's going to cover a few topics. Solving some equations is going to be the basic topic of the problems that I'm going to be working. There's a couple of word problems. I'm going to also talk about percent to decimal and how to find the percent of a number and solve for specific variables within an equation. So let's just get started. Okay, so I have a word problem. The word problem says that I have a square, and one side of the square is 5 inches long, and another side is n plus 16 inches long. And it wants to know what is n and what is the side length of the square. Well, whenever you have a word problem and you don't have a picture, try to draw a picture. So we have a square, and one thing that we know about squares is all sides are the same. And these little hash marks here, or tick marks, whatever you want to call them, you'll see those more in geometry. That shows that each side that has one little slash mark in it is the same length. So I have one side is 5n, and another side is n plus 16. And so how am I going to solve for n? Well, I can make an equation because of the fact that I know that squares, in a square, each side is equal to each other. So I have 5n is going to be equal to n plus 16. So I'll make that equation. Now, notice that n plus 16 is not the same thing as 5n, so don't get confused that 5n is not n plus 16. What we're doing is that one side is represented by the expression 5n, another side is represented by the expression n plus 16, and we set those equal to each other to find out what does n have to be in order for these two expressions to be equal to make this a true statement about the square. So I solve for n, so I have 5 n's on the left side of the equal sign. I have an n on the right side, so I'm going to take this n on the right side to the left side. So this n is being added to the right side. I know that because it's positive, not because of this plus sign, because the sign in front of the number goes with the number. So because it's positive, so I subtract n from each side. Draw my little line under there. 5n minus n is 4n. These n's cancel. Equals, bring the 16 down. Now 4 and n are being multiplied, so I want to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division, so I divide by 4 on each side. These cancel. What happens is 4 over 4, 4 divided by 4 is 1, so that's 1n, which is the same thing as just n, is equal to 16 divided by 4, which is 4. So part of my answer is n is equal to 4. But now what is the side length? What I want to do is sub that in. So here I would have 5 times n, which is 4. So 5 times 4 is 20. So the side length is 20. And it should check out on this side too. 4 plus 16, and it is 20. My side length of each square is 20, and n is equal to 4. And that's how that problem works. So remember, when you're doing a word problem, whenever you're not given a picture, draw a picture. Let's take a look at another problem. Let's look at a proportion. And this is kind of a bag video. There are different things in here, but it still has a common theme, and that's solving equations. So if I have the ratio or the proportion 4a over 9 is equal to 100 divided by 95. And I want to solve for a. I hope I didn't write this down wrong. This could be a 4 right here, but we'll solve it for 95. So how do I solve a proportion? I want to cross multiply. So I cross multiply here and here. 9 times 100 is 900. I think this is a 4. I'm going to go ahead and change it to a 4 and just gamble that it is. Then 4a times 45. Well, if I use my calculator, I see that that's 180a. See, the 9 times 100, that was easy to do in my head. But 4 times 45, maybe I need to use my calculator. And with any of these, always use your calculator if you have that availability, okay? So 4 times 45 is 180, and then I have an A there. So 4A times 45 is 180A. My next step, 180 is being multiplied with A, and I'm just solving the equation. So I divide by 180. These cancel, or 180 over 180 is 1A, which is just A again. And so I get, I have to divide this side by 180. And so my answer is 5. A is equal to 5. So solving proportions, pretty easy. Just cross multiply and then divide. And that's it. Continuing on with the idea of solving equations, if I was given 4x plus 3y equals negative 12, and the problem says to solve for y. What does that mean to solve for y? To solve for y, that means I want to get y all by itself. And a way that I used to teach solving these equations, or solving equations for a specific variable, is treating it like an onion. Well, if you cut an onion horizontally, I believe, and you open it up, it's got layers. And it's like that, almost like rings. And you can't get to the inside of the onion until you peel each layer back. And so that's kind of how we solve equations. What we do is the variable we're solving for, this is the center of the onion. So the center of my onion is y right there, okay? And what I want to do is just kind of lightly make my onion layers a little bit. Okay? And so what this does to help me is it gives me an order to go by. I cannot get to the inside y here, the inside of the onion, until I peel out these outer layers. So what's on the outside is this 4x. Don't worry about the right side of the equal sign right now because there's no variables over here. Leave that constant negative 12 all by itself. So 4x is being added to the left side of the equal sign, and I know that because it's positive. Again, not because of this plus, but because it's positive. So I subtract the 4x from each side. Draw this little line underneath. 4x minus 4x is 0. Bring the rest down. 3y is equal to. Here, what I have going on here is some subtraction, but I cannot subtract these two from each other because they're not like terms. Like terms have to have the same variable with the exact same power. And what I have here is a constant with no variable and a negative 4 with an x. And so what I'm going to do is I just rewrite it. And I want to start with the variable first. So that's a negative 4x minus 12. I cannot combine them any other way because they're not like terms. My next step, finally, 3 and y are being multiplied together. So I do the opposite, which is division. Divide by 3. That leaves me with 1y, or simply y, is equal to. Divide each of these by 3. And if I want, I can leave these as fractions and simplify them if you can. So this just becomes negative 4x over 3, which can also be written as negative 4 over 3 times x. Okay, this is the same thing. And you're probably going to see this more often than this, but get used to seeing both, okay? And then minus 12 divided by 3 is minus 4, and so this is your answer. That is the equation solved for y, okay? Now, let's take a quick look in case you're wondering, how did I just take this x off of that 4? When I multiply, and I'm not going to do this, but let me just show you this out here to the side. If I have negative 4 over 3 times x, what I have is negative 4 over 3 times x over 1, okay? And then you multiply top times top and bottom times bottom. And negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And 3 times 1 is 3. And so that's how that works. I hope that doesn't trip you up much. Get used to working with those fractions, but that is how you solve that equation for y. Let's do another one. If I have a is equal to 2 times the difference m minus w, and I want to solve for w. So here I want w by itself. So what I have to do first is, hopefully you can see, I've got to distribute this 2 by multiplying it to the m and to the minus w. So 2 times m is 2m, and 2 times minus w is minus 2w. Bring the rest down. Now, we're solving for w, and so remember, this is kind of like the center of our onion, this w, kind of like the center of our onion. So let's look and see what's on the outside here. Well, what's on the outside is this 2m. I've got to get rid of this 2m. And this 2m is being added to the right side of the equal sign because it's positive, so I subtract 2m from both sides. Draw my line underneath. These cancel. Now, this works out just like before, where I can't actually subtract them because they're not like terms, so I simply rewrite them like this. A minus 2m equals, what's left over here? Minus 2w. And this minus is important to come down because remember, the sign in front of the number goes with the number. Now I have a minus 2 or a negative 2 being multiplied by w, and I want to do the opposite, which is division, so I divide by minus 2. And minus 2 over minus 2 is 1, so that leaves me with 1w, or just w, is equal to, divide this by minus 2 and divide this by minus 2. So what happens? A divided by minus 2 is simply a over minus 2. And then minus 2 over minus 2, look at that, those cancel. And a minus divided by a minus is positive, so that's plus m. So I have a over minus 2 plus m. W is equal to a minus a over 2 plus m. Now notice also that since this 2 is negative on bottom, all that really does essentially is it makes the entire fraction negative. That's just going to be negative a over 2 plus m equals w. And you could also rewrite it if you're looking at multiple choice. Maybe this doesn't match your answer choice. Maybe it's written like this. W, let me change my color. W is equal to m minus a over 2. Same thing. I have a positive m here. I have a positive m here. I have a negative a over 2 here. I have a negative or a minus a over 2 here. Negative and minus is pretty much the same thing. That's how you would solve for a. This one may have been a little bit more difficult because you had to actually distribute, but that's how that problem works. And I have a couple more things I'm going to work with on this video. I'm going to talk about percent for a minute, and this is kind of off topic, but I am going to talk about percent. If I have a problem that says, or a number, and it says I have 14.5%, and I need to know the decimal equivalent to this. Well, the first thing I need to do is change this to a decimal. Where is the decimal? Well, 14.5, isn't that the same thing as 14.5%? Sure it is. Now, what's my rule changing a decimal to a percent? I simply move the decimal 2 places to the left. So I'm starting here and I go 1, 2. So my decimal moves to here, and my answer is 0.145. So 14.5% is written as a decimal as 0.145. And one more problem. If I need to know what is 44% of 80. Well, first thing you need to know, very important, is this word of. What does this word of mean? I'm putting these asterisks here because it is very important. It is a very important key word. It means to multiply. So I'm going to multiply 44% times 80. But I cannot multiply by the percent. I must multiply by the decimal equivalent. So how do I do that? Where's the decimal? Since I don't see the decimal, it's here at the end. So I move it 2 places to the left to change it to a decimal. So 44% becomes 0.44. And so I multiply that times 80 and I get, using my calculator, 35.2. So that was a mixed bag of problems. Hopefully this helps. Whoever needs help with these things, I will title the video as Solving Equations, Proportions, and Working with Percents and Decimals. Good luck. Hope this helps.